Hi, hello everyone. It's me again, Mama Riel. Welcome to my channel. So for this video, we're going to discuss all about graphing ellipses in standard form centered at the origin. Okay? Meron tayong two parts of graphing ellipses. The first one is standard form centered at the origin and centered at H and K. Okay? Pero in this video, magpo-focus lang tayo sa graphing ellipses in standard form centered at the origin. So, when we say origin, yung center natin is at 0 and 0. Okay? So, when we say ellipse, it is the set of all points such that the sum of the distances from two fixed points called foci. When we say foci, it is the plural form of the focus. So, it is constant. Okay? So, you can see we have two equations, x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared is equal to 1, and x squared over b squared plus y squared over a squared is equal to 1. So, this is a standard form of an ellipse. So, always remember A is greater than B for horizontal ellipses, and A is greater than B for vertical ellipses. Bakit siya same, ma'am? Bakit A is greater than B tapos horizontal? And A is greater than B, tapos vertical siya dito. Take a look at the equation. Yung A natin is always greater than B, siya yung magiging A, kung alin yung mas mataas na value. Okay? And kung nasa ang tapat yung mas mataas na value, so si A, saan ba yung tapat niya? Kay X, di ba? Meaning to say, ang major axis natin is in the X axis. Kaya siya tinawag na horizontal. Okay? So, second equation naman, palaging si A yung highest value, okay? So, we have A squared. Nandito naman siya sa tapat ni Y, diba? Kanina sa tapat ni X, si A squared. Ngayon naman, nasa tapat ni Y. Meaning to say, our major axis is the Y axis or it is vertical, okay? Dito sa horizontal ellipses, we have positive and negative A and 0 as our vertices. 0 and positive and negative V at our co-vertices. And positive and negative C and 0 as our foci. Okay? While dito naman kay vertical ellipses, we have vertices at 0 and positive and negative A, co-vertices at positive and negative B and 0, foci at 0 and positive and negative C. Okay, so later on, ituturo ko sa inyo kung paano mas madaling mag-graph ng ellipses even without memorizing this. Okay? Coordinates. Okay? So, always remember, A is greater than B. And kung halimbawa, nakita nyo na dito kung alin yung greater, yun yung palaging A. Okay? And kung saan siya katapat, doon madedetermine yung horizontal and vertical ellipses. Anyway, madedetermine natin or mahahanap natin yung measurement ng ating foci using C squared is equal to A squared minus B squared. Okay? These are the example of horizontal and vertical ellipses. As you can see, we have a horizontal ellipses where our A is greater than B, and if that's so, ang ating major axis is at the x-axis. Ito po ang ating x-axis, A, and this one is B and B. And ito yung tinatawag nating vertices, two co-vertices, and yung ating foci is nasa loob ng ating ellipse. Okay? Take a look at this. This is an example of vertical ellipses. As you can see, ang ating A is greater than B, wherein ang ating major axis is at the y-axis. So, ito yung ating y-axis, and the measurement is A. And of course, ito yung ating two co-vertices, which is B and B from the center. Okay? And this is our vertices. So, ang ating foci is nandito sa loob ng ating ellipse. Okay? So, always remember to take a look at A, which is always greater than B, and then identify if the ellipse is horizontal or vertical. Okay? So, take a look at our first example. We have x squared over 49 plus y squared over 36 is equal to 1. So, this is in standard form already. And since A is always greater than B, the first thing to do is tingnan natin yung both denominator kung alin ba yung greater value. Since si 49 yung ating greater value, we therefore conclude that ang ating A is nandito and katapat siya ni X. Right after that, since nasa tapat siya ni X, our ellipse is horizontal. And always remember, since it is horizontal, our major axis is on the x-axis. Ito yung ating x-axis. Nandito yung ating major axis. So, the first thing to do is to find A, B, and C. Enable for us to graph our ellipse even without memorizing the formula or the coordinates given by vertices, co-vertices, and foci. Si A, B, and C, sila na yung mag-identify. Ipa-plot na lang natin siya later on kay Cartesian coordinate plane. Okay, so to find A, remember we have A squared and B squared. So A squared is equal to 49. And then to find A, we are going to extract square root both sides. So we have A is equal to square root of 49 is 7. So ito na yung ating A. So si A yung mag-identify ng ating vertices, alright? And then next thing to do is to find B. We have B squared is equal to 36. And then extract square root, cancel, then B is equal to 6. So si B naman yung mag-identify ng ating co-vertices, okay? And the next thing to do is to find C. We have the formula for our C, which is, siya naman yung mag-identify ng ating foci. We have C squared is equal to A squared minus B squared. Since ang ating A squared is 49 minus 36 ang ating B squared, we have C squared is equal to 49 minus 36 is 13. And to cancel square, we have to extract square root both sides, then cancel. C is equal to square root of 13, or if you're going to compute it on your calculator, and para hindi din kayo mahirapan mag-plot sa Cartesian coordinate plane, it is equal to 3.6. So, si C naman yung mag-identify ng ating foci. Okay? Then, right after that, pwede na tayong mag-graph ng ating ellipse. Okay? Since ang ating origin is 0 and 0. Remember, kasi wala naman tayong H and K dito. Next part ng video na to, dun ko i-discuss yung meron naman tayong H and K. So, we have our 0 and 0 as our center. And then, ang ating A is 7. Since ang ating ellipse is horizontal and nasa x-axis siya, meaning to say, ang ating A is dito natin ipa-plot sa x-axis. So, from the center, 7 units to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, nandito siya. And 7 units to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yan. Remember, we have A and A. And now, we're going to plot our co-vertices, which is B. 6 units, upward and downward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nandito siya. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Nandito siya. Then, right after that, pwede nyo nang i-drawing or i-graph yung ating ellipse. So, pag ganito siya. Okay, so the next thing to do is to graph our foci. So we have 3.6, and of course, from the center, we're going to count 3 units left and right since ang ating ellipse is horizontal and our major axis is the x-axis. Ito yung major axis natin. Then, ang ating foci is 1, 2, 3.6. So, I guess nandito siya. And 1, 2, 3.6. So, nandito yung ating foci. So, the next thing to do is to get the coordinates of our vertices, co-vertices, and foci. So, we have our vertex 1, negative 7, and 0. Vertex 2, 7, and 0. We have our co-vertices 1, 0, and negative 6. And co-vertices 2 at 0 and positive 6. And of course, our foci is at negative square root of 13 and 0. And foci 2 or focus 2 is at square root of 13 and 0. Okay, so now let's check it from the coordinates or the formula of the vertices, co-vertices, and foci. So, for our vertices, we have positive and negative A and 0. And our positive and negative A is 7. So, ito na yung vertices natin. We have positive 7 and 0. And negative 7 and 0. Tama yung nakuha nating coordinates. How about the co-vertices? 0 and positive and negative B. So, we have 0 and our B is 6. Okay, so take a look at this. Tingnan natin kung tama ba siya sa ating coordinates. We have co-vertices at 0 and positive 6, 0 and positive 6, 0 and negative 6. Okay, so tama din siya. Alright, the next one is the foci. Tingnan natin kung tama ba tayo sa foci. We have the formula for foci at positive and negative c and 0. And our c is square root of 13. Ito siya. We have square root of 13, positive and negative, and 0. So we have positive and negative square root of 13, positive square root of 13 and 0, negative square root of 13 and 0. So yun yung ating foci. Meaning to say, nakapag-graph tayo ng ellipse even without memorizing this formula for vertices, co-vertices, and foci. Ang ginamit lang natin is si A, si B, and C. Okay? Okay, so take a look at this. Another example, we have 4x squared plus 25y squared is equal to 100. So what are we going to do first is to convert it into a standard form of an ellipse. And ang standard form ng ellipse natin is x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared is equal to 1. Equal to 1 dapat to. So, enable for us to make it equal to 1, we are going to divide it to 100. Lahat ng terms, i-divide natin into 100. Kasi di ba dapat 1 yung numerical coefficient ni x squared, ni y squared, and dapat constant si 100. Dapat maging 1 siya. So what are we going to do is to cancel 100. Then it is equal to 1 already. So dahil nga x squared lang dapat ang matira dito kay numerator, i-divide natin siya and ilo-lowest term natin si 4 over 100 and divide it by 4 kasi si 4 yung eliminate natin. Okay? Both sides numerator and denominator. So 4 divided by 4 is equal to 1. Therefore, x squared na lang siya. Tama? Over 100 divided by 4 is equal to 25. Okay? And the next thing to do is to lowest term 25 over 100. Since si 25 yung eliminate natin kay y squared para si y squared na lang yung nandito sa numerator, i-divide natin both numerator to denominator to 25, okay? So, we have 25 divided by 25 is equal to 1, which is y squared na lang. And then, over 100 divided by 25 is equal to 4. And then, that's it. Ito na yung equation natin ngayon. This is a standard form of an ellipse, right? So, next thing to do is to remember that A is always greater than B. Okay? And, enable for you to determine A in the denominator of this X and Y, syempre, yung pinaka-malaki ang value or the greater value. Since si 25 yung greater value, meaning to say, ang A natin is nasa tapat ni X. And, dahil dyan, ang ating major axis is on the x-axis. And our ellipse is, of course, horizontal. Right? What are we going to do next is to find A, B, and C, enable for us to graph our ellipse in a Cartesian coordinate plane. So, we have our A squared. Since sabi natin kanina, ang A squared is itong pinakamalaki na value. So, we have 25. And ang b squared natin is itong mas maliit na value. So, we have 4. And then, to eliminate square, we have to extract square root. Cancel. Cancel. Then, a is equal to square root of 25 is 5. Tama? And this is our measurement of our two vertices from the origin. Okay? And the next is b. Cancel na lang. Is equal to square root of 4 is 2. And this will be our co-vertices from the origin. Okay? Next thing to do is to find C. We have the formula for our C as C squared is equal to A squared minus B squared. And since ang ating A squared is 25 minus 4 is equal to 21. Okay? So, the next thing to do is we have to eliminate square again. So, square root, cancel, C is equal to square root of 21. And para hindi kayo mahirapan siyang i-plot mamaya sa Cartesian coordinate plane, try nyo na din hanapin yung square root of 21 since hindi siya perfect square, meaning to say may decimal point siya. So, square root of 21 or 4.5. And we are now ready to graph our ellipse. So, the first thing to do is to graph our vertices on the major axis of our ellipse. Since ang ating major axis is at x-axis and we have 5 units from the origin, since ang ating focus for this video is graphing an ellipse centered at the origin, meaning to say ang ating center is at 0 and 0. So, ito yung ating center. So, from the center, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, ito na yung ating vertex 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and vertex 2. Okay? Then, the next thing to do is to plot our co-vertices. Since ang ating co-vertices is itong B, nasa y-axis siya, so ito yung ating magiging co-vertices. Nandito siya. So, we have 2 units from the origin, 1, 2, and 1, 2. Alright? And then, next thing to do is to connect the dots. Okay? Iko-connect lang natin siya, enable for us to create an ellipse. So, ganito lang siya. Okay, so yan na yung ellipse natin. The next thing to do is to get its coordinates, okay? So, kuhain muna natin yung coordinates ng ating 2 vertices. We have positive 5 and 0 and negative 5 and 0. Alright? Okay, i-plot muna natin first pala yung ating foci. Since ang ating foci is 4.5 or square root of 21, so nandito siya, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0.5. So, I guess nandyan siya. And focus 2 is 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So, nandyan yung ating 2 foci. Okay? So, kunin naman natin yung coordinates ng ating co-vertices. We have 0 and positive 2. And then, 0 and negative 2. Alright? So, ito yung vertex 1 natin. Vertex 2. And ito yung co-vertices natin. And kunin naman natin yung ating foci. We have square root of 21, negative, and 0. And of course, square root of 21 and 0. So, yan na yung mga coordinates natin. I-try naman natin siya gamit yung formula of their coordinates kung tama ba yung nakuha natin. So, we have the formula for our vertices at positive and negative a and 0. And our a is 5. So, we have positive and negative 5 and 0. Tingnan natin kung tama. Positive and negative 5 and 0. So, check. And then, our formula for co-vertices, we have 0 and positive and negative b. So, 0, positive and negative. Ang b natin is 2. So, tingnan natin. We have 0 and positive and negative 2. So, tama. The next is our foci. Ang ating formula for foci is positive and negative c and 0. And of course, ang c natin is square root of 21, positive and negative, and 0. So, I guess, tama siya. Ito. Okay, so take a look at this another example. We have x squared over 9 plus y squared over 16 is equal to 1. Always remember that a is always greater than b. Okay, so yun lang yung pinakamahalagang dapat matandaan no, kapag mag-graph kayo ng ellipse. A is greater than b. Meaning to say, kung alin dito yung mas malaki ang value, yun yung magiging a natin. Okay, or a squared, ganun din yan. So, we have 16 as the greater value. Meaning to say, nandito yung ating a squared. Next thing to do is identify the major axis. Since ang ating a is nandito, dahil si 16 ang mas malaki kesa kay 9, and nasa y siya, or nasa tapat ni y, meaning to say, ang ating major axis is at the y-axis. Okay? So, nasaan yung ating y-axis sa Cartesian coordinate plane? Ito siya. Itong vertical line. Okay? And meaning to say, ang ating ellipse is a vertical ellipse. Okay, so right after that, you are going to solve for A, B, and C, enable for you to graph the ellipse, right? So we have our a squared is equal to 16 and b squared is equal to 9. Able for us to eliminate square, we have to extract square root. Alright? And then cancel, of course. And then a is equal to square root of 16 is 4. So ito na yung ating magiging vertices, right? And then ang ating b is equal to square root of 9 is 3. So yung ating b naman yung magde-determine ng ating co-vertices. Tama? And then, of course, do not forget to find c for our foci. We have c squared is equal to a squared minus b squared. Ang ating a squared is 16 minus 9 is 7. And then, we have to extract square root to cancel square. So, c is equal to square root of 7 or 2.6. Alright? So, we are now ready to graph our ellipse. Okay? Since ang ating major axis is at the y-axis, meaning to say, ang ating ellipse is vertical, ito, meaning to say, nandito yung ating vertices. So, yung A natin is 4. So, from the origin, remember, ang center natin is always at the origin. So, we have our center here. And then, yung vertices natin is 4 units from the center. So, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Bakit dito iniligay ni ma'am yung vertices? Kasi po, ang ating ellipse is vertical and ang ating major axis is nasa y-axis. Okay? Then next is ang ating co-vertices which is 3. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. And now we are ready to graph our ellipse. Next thing to do is to plot our foci since we have vertical ellipse and ang major axis natin is on the y-axis. So we have from the center 2.6 units upward and downward. 1, 2.6. 1, 2.6. So, ito na yung ating foci. Remember, ang foci is always nasa loob ni ellipse and nandun siya sa major axis natin. Okay? Then, next is to get the coordinates of our vertices, co-vertices, and foci even without those formula. So, we have our vertex 1 at 0 and 4, vertex 2 at 0 and negative 4. Alright? And of course, our co-vertices, we have negative 3 and 0, and of course, positive 3 and 0. Next is our foci. We have 0 and positive square root of 7. So, ito yung ating focus 1. Focus 2 natin is at 0 and negative square root of 7. Okay? So, now, let us see if tama ba yung nakuha nating coordinates using the formula for vertices, co-vertices, and foci of the vertical ellipses. So, we have vertices at 0 and positive and negative a. And our a is equal to 4. So, we have 0 and positive 4, 0 and negative 4. So, tama yung ating nakuhang coordinates. And ang ating co-vertices is at positive and negative b and 0. So, we have positive and negative 3 and 0. Let us check. Positive 3 and 0, negative 3 and 0. Next is our foci. We have 0 and positive and negative c. And of course, ang ating c ay square root of 7. So, we have 0 and negative 7 and 0 and positive 7.